Hey everyone, I've worked with many startup founders and entrepreneurs, and pretty much everything that can go wrong in a startup or entrepreneurial venture, I've seen go wrong, okay? And I'm not just talking about tech startups with seed capital, I'm talking about more traditional small business type startups also. And after seeing so many mistakes, I see history repeating itself. I see patterns. The same mistakes keep getting made over and over again. And so today I wanted to share some of them with you because forewarned is forearmed if you're wanting to start a business. Now, here's the one I want to talk about, okay? Many people who start their own companies, okay, whether, no matter what they're doing, basically, is they follow a general trend. They go and they get some kind of startup financing, usually from the government or from a lending institution, usually in the form of debt financing, okay, some of which are a little bit predatory, but that's the topic for another video. And maybe they join their local startup incubator in their town and they launch, right? And they've got a business plan where they're going to develop a product or service, right? And that's usually several months away. And it's going to take time, it's going to take money, it's going to take resources. And a lot of them don't actually get to the point where they develop their product or service. It's never finished. And they run out of money, and that's the end of it. And let's talk about this for a second, because I've seen that happen so many times. They don't even get to, okay, I'm not just talking about not getting to a launch where they finish their product or service. I'm talking about they don't even get to an intermediate stage like a prototype or an MVP, minimum viable product. So why does this happen? Well, people run out of money. Why is that? Okay, let's dive in. Number one, if you're going to start a business, here's what you got to know. Burn this into your brain, okay? Things always cost more than you think. Things always take more time than you think. And on top of that, there's always going to be unforeseen developments, okay? Things that cost both your time and your money, okay? Things that you didn't plan for. Okay, this is what happens. This is just the nature of the game, especially if you're doing a more innovative type startup where you're trying to develop something for the first time. And even if it's not for the first time, it's the first time for you, okay? So this is breaking new ground, and you got to allow for that. Now, what do I see? I see people, first of all, when they make their business plan and they try and determine how much money and time they're going to need, okay? They always base it on a pretty much best case scenario. So they allow for a very short amount of time, they allow for only a very small amount of cost, and they think they're going to be okay. And then they obtain financing, which is like just enough to work that plan. So if anything goes wrong, they're screwed. The other reason, okay, and this is the more interesting one, this is where like the psychology, comes into play here, is the other thing I've seen is a lot of startup founders, they get their financing, okay, and all of a sudden they're handed all this money, and it puts them in a sort of expensive mood, and they start spending money on totally unessential things. This is not good, okay? Now, trust me, I know the temptation. Somebody gives you money and you think, all right, let's start spending money. Let's have something to show for being given this much investment, this much capital with which to play, right? Let's start getting results with it, okay? And you got to resist that. You got to resist that because you end up blowing your money on totally non-essential things and you're going to need that cash later, okay? Now, a couple of things that people don't really talk about here is first of all, is the investor's perspective. Okay. Now, if you're an investor and you walk through the doors of a startup company in which you're invested, okay, and they haven't launched yet, so they haven't gotten to the point where they have sustainable sales revenue. Okay. They're not revenue positive yet. They're on their journey towards that point, hopefully. But you walk through the front door and you see like $1 million office with granite countertops and things like this. This is a red flag. This is a total red flag for investors. It signals that the founder of the company doesn't really know what they're doing. They're spending money in a not very judicious way. Okay, that's a red flag. Now, I totally understand the temptation for the founders. You want to present yourself well. You're trying to do some publicity and things like this. You want to put a very polished face and image, to your potential market and things, potential investors. I get it, but you got to resist the temptation. Okay, you really do. You can sum up all of these reasons in one simple word. You have to be frugal. You like that word? I love that word. You got to be frugal. Okay, you got to be a cheapskate. It's as simple as that. If you're going to be a startup founder in the very beginning, until you're revenue positive and until you have a steady cash flow coming in so that you could service all your debts and pay back investors and all this kind of stuff, you need to be a real cheapskate. Okay, you guard that money. You don't spend it until absolutely necessary, because that money is your lifeline. Now, there is a very famous book, okay? This is not original to me or anything. This is a very popular book called Crossing the Chasm, okay, by Geoffrey A. And I highly recommend this. Is it the be-all, end-all? No, it isn't. But what it does is, among other things, it kind of illustrates the need to really hang on to your cash and be very conservative with it, because people that spend money right, left, and center, that's the kiss of death, okay? And it really paints a picture of like that mentality and what it's like to be in that mentality and the need for it, okay? So that's not the central point of the book. It talks about other things, but for that reason alone, I'd recommend that book. I'll put a link in the description to it. So hopefully this makes sense. This is probably about enough to digest in one video. I'd like to make more of these going forward. So if you have comments, please let me know. And every day I help startup founders avoid and mitigate problems like this one. Okay, if you're interested, check out my website below and you can kind of see more details about that. But until next time, thank you very much. And always remember, you're awesome. Take care.